Hey, this is Matthew with Bipolar. In this video on being a PM at Microsoft, I'm going to talk about one of the core skills for being a successful PM, a skill without which your career will stagnate, and that is the ability to influence without authority. I hope you'll stay with me. Welcome back. If you are new to the channel or new to the series, make sure you check out the introductory video where I talk about my goals and audience for these videos. Essentially, I've been a PM at Microsoft for over 15 years, and since I don't have a time machine, I can't go back in time and share this advice with my past self, I'm sharing with you the advice that I wish that someone had given me when I was starting my career, key skills and activities that can set you up for success. So if you're a PM at Microsoft today, if you're in a similar role or at a similar organization, or if being a PM at Microsoft is part of your career plan, I hope that you'll stay with me because this video is for you. In a lot of ways, being a PM is fundamentally influencing others to do what you need when you don't get to tell them what to do. Even though some PMs are people managers, most PMs are individual contributors, and their day-to-day job is focused on helping others understand what problems we need to solve, how collaboration can drive towards shared goals, and basically making it so that other people who aren't in your reporting chain want to do the things that you need them to do. This skill of influencing without authority is not unique to being a PM, but it is one of those fundamental PM skills that if you can't do this thing, everything else is going to be much more challenging. I should mention, of course, that this is not a unique or new topic. There's tons of information that's out there. If you use your search engine of choice to look for influencing without authority, you'll find books, you'll find videos, you'll find LinkedIn learning courses and other available training materials. One of my favorite resources is a nano tool from the Wharton School of Business, basically focusing on their executive learners, because this is such a vital skill. Being a PM is kind of like being a mini executive sometimes. You need to own things, you need to drive collaboration in order to drive impact. I'll share a link to this nano tool either down below or in the blog post that accompanies the video. We'll see what I remember to do. But understand that this is my personal take on a skill that has been well explored. In a later video, sometime in the second half of this year, I'm planning a video on expertise. Like, how do you go from knowing something or being good at something to really being an expert? And part of that video, spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about the importance of really going deep into and wallowing in all of the information and all of the perspectives that you can find on a topic where you truly want to be an expert. This would be a great opportunity for this fundamental PM skill for you to start looking at additional resources. So once you're done with this video, maybe head over to your favorite search engine, check out what other resources are there. It really is that important. As we're talking about influencing without authority, I want to break this skill down into three primary factors or three tips, three key things that you need to know in order to be successful influencing others without authority. The first thing that you need to understand is your own motivations and your own incentives. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? And in a lot of ways, this is something that we probably take for granted on a day-to-day basis. We've got this vague idea in the back of our head, what we're trying to do and why. But most of us, most of the time, seem to be focused not on our goals, but on the actions that we're taking today. To successfully influence without authority, you need to be introspective and honest with yourself about what your goals are. What are the things that you're working to achieve? Why is this important to you? If you evaluate it against your other priorities and the other things that are on your plate, where does this particular activity or particular goal rank among those other priorities? you need to be honest with yourself. This is one of those fundamental activities where reflecting and deeply understanding, like, what is it that I really need? Like, I'm going to go to someone else and ask them to help me. What are they helping me do? Am I just going to ask for a task? If so, what are the motivations behind the task? Or am I going to ask them to help me achieve a goal? If so, how do I communicate about this goal? How do I really think about it myself? The first thing that you deeply need to understand is yourself. The second thing to keep in mind, the second tip or the second aspect of influencing without authority, is that you need to understand your collaborators' motivations and incentives. So, what do they care about? What are their priorities? What are they working on? If you are going to a peer on a similar team, let's say in order for you to ship a feature, you need someone in another team to ship a complementary feature or enable something. Like you're going to a telemetry team because you need them to do fundamental work before you can build on top of it, or a shared UX team because you need them to make an investment in order for you to build on top of that UX framework. Regardless of what the details are, you really need to understand what they're doing, what they're working on, what they've said yes to, what they've already said no to. You really need to understand what are their motivations, both in the short term and the longer term, to the best of your ability. This is one of those places where you can't just reflect and be introspective. Like understanding yourself is hard as a human, but it's easy enough to figure out because it's a battle of one. Understanding others really boils down to, in an ongoing basis, being empathic, being open, and being attentive. If you're collaborating with someone, you need to be mindful. What do they do? What do they like? What do they not do? What do they dislike? Like, what are their rhythms? How do they work? This is an investment that if you're not making it now, this is kind of the groundwork for this fundamental skill. You need to understand for the people that you're hoping to influence, what do they care about? What's in it for them? What are their motivations? What are their priorities? If you can't answer these things, you basically can't see the target that you need to hit. You don't understand the rules of the game if you don't understand your collaborators. And then the third piece of advice, or the third thing that I want to share, is that when you understand what you care about and you understand what your potential collaborator cares about, what's the intersection? What are the things that they care about that align with the thing that you're asking them to do? Is it genuinely valuable for them? If it's not, boy, you've got an uphill battle. If it is, how do you emphasize that? How do you align the way that you think and the way that you communicate to emphasize that it's good for them because you understand them and you genuinely believe that the thing that you're asking them to do is valuable for them and does truly align with their priorities? As part of this as well, there's a couple things that you need to take into consideration. One of them is like, what's the power balance? Are you peers with them? Are you peers with their manager or their skip level? Is it the other way around? Are you the little fish or are they the big fish? The power balance is really going to influence how much leverage you have by default. And in a lot of ways, it will influence how much work you need to do to get your request well aligned with their priorities. If you're a PM2 and you're trying to convince a principal PM on another team to take action that doesn't align with their actual priorities, boy, that's going to be a tough sell. If you're a principal PM on one team trying to get a senior PM on another team to take action that will actually set them up for success, this is going to be much simpler. Beyond this, there's also the nature of your relationship with them. Are they a strategic, long-term collaborator and peer? Are they someone that you've worked with for a long time? Or are you on teams that are going to be shipping a larger product together? Or is this just a transactional request? They're on some random team in another org, and they're not really invested in your work or your success. Depending on this balance, you'll need either to firmly establish context and information, or maybe you can just roll with the groundwork that your existing relationship has enabled or put in place. Another aspect of that intersection is, what's your reputation? If you have a reputation, like if you've earned a reputation as a good collaborator, where you are truly setting the people that align with your needs, the people that do the work that you ask them to do, if you've built a reputation setting them up for success, when you go back for the next request for the next stakeholder and so on, this is going to be a much easier conversation. If you've burned bridges behind you, if you've asked for help and then wandered away, or if you've made a request and then your priorities changed and you left someone dangling, this type of bad actor behavior is probably going to come back to haunt you. The reputation that you build through your day-to-day work is, in a lot of ways, the currency that you're spending when you're working to influence without authority. Because here's the deal. Influencing without authority, at its foundation, is a function of emotional intelligence. That deep understanding of what you're looking for, what motivates you, what do you actually care about, and the ability to put yourself in the shoes of a potential collaborator. What do they care about? What are they working on? Is this thing that you're asking for genuinely good for them, or is it something that you're maybe twisting things around a little? The more honest you can be when you're making these requests, the more successful you're likely to be. And because in the best case scenario, which needs to be the common scenario for you to practice this, you're looking for those collaborators who would naturally want to do the things that you're asking for, where they might prioritize it a little higher because you asked, or they might be changing the way that they work to better align with you, but you're genuinely asking them to do things that are good for them, good for their team, and good for their product. When you find that sweet spot, when you apply that emotional intelligence and the knowledge of yourself and the knowledge of your collaborator, good things happen. And if any of this sounds familiar, it's probably because last year I published a video on the 5 questions that you should ask yourself before you communicate. In a lot of ways, this is similar advice, but packaged towards a different end, because influencing without authority is at its foundation communication and emotional intelligence. A lot of the same practices are going to come into play. If you're looking for a slightly different take on these fundamental skills and the way that you might get a better understanding of yourself and others, definitely check out that video. Either way, we are wrapping up the end of the first half of the year. Next week's video is going to be a recap and intermission as we hit the middle of the calendar year. Love to hear what you think. Please do remember that I'm relying on your feedback, your comments, your liking, your subscribing. All of these things, I'm relying on this to give me inspiration and energy as we move through the year. Gotten a lot of great feedback. I really appreciate it. Keep it coming, and I will see you next week.